Hi, everyone. Welcome back to my podcast, Managing with Common Sense. My name is Glenn Cruz. I have two special guests today. One special guest is actually returning onto my podcast, which I am so thankful he's coming back. And our first special guest is Nate Brown. He's one of the directors at Arise. I met him at the HDI Support World Live conference in Las Vegas. I met him, had a great conversation with him, and I had to get him on the pod. And our second guest is no other than our own Ben Brennan from QSTAC. Glad to have him back. I really appreciate Ben for taking the time to come to the pod to have a conversation about our topic today is customer service. How exciting is that, customer service? So without further ado, let's get right into the pod. Hi, everyone. Thank you for listening to my podcast. My name is Glenn Cruz. This is my podcast with Managing with Common Sense. I have two great guests and a returning guest today with me. Well, he's kind of in the bottom of my Zoom screen. It's probably Nate's on the side. So I have Nate Brown. He's
Hello.
the Senior Director of CX at Rise. And he'll speak a little about that. We'll get to know Nate a little more. And then we all know Ben. He was in my last podcast about using common sense in IT. So that was a good one. That was a long one. I think it was my longest one.
That tends to happen with me in general.
Yes, it's
Is
okay.
that a compliment?
It's a good compliment because we were.
It's a feature and a bug at the same time.
Yeah. So Nate, welcome to the pod. Really appreciate it. Tell us a little about yourself.
Yeah, I'm in Nashville. I have my mandolin over here. I'm a lover of hot chicken. Actually, I have some of my own chickens. I can see right out the window here in Middle Tennessee, and I got two younger daughters, and I got Dolly to the east of me, and Elvis to the west. So right here in the middle of Nashville, do a lot of kayaking and disc golf and pickleball. Pickleball has been my more recent obsession. But certainly professionally, I am a student of the customer experience world. I love this work. I feel like it's so artistic, but also so scientific in terms of the nature of the work. And it just absolutely fascinates me. It's the funnest puzzle to solve that I have found professionally. So I've dedicated my career to trying to solve this CX puzzle for different organizations. And that's what I get to do right now.
And Ben has a great tool that he has with his company.
Indeed.
And Ben, welcome to the pod again. Really appreciate you for coming on board for this podcast about customer service.
Totally. I can't wait. And especially, we were talking before, but I have to plug something. I have to plug Nate Brown, my co-guest here, who I've always been a fan of, but most recently just seeing a talk that he did, like fired me up, like you in kind of I think Nate, you'll probably agree, like in our line of work, a lot of times we're the fire uppers. Like our job is to fire up everyone else.
Yep.
It was such a treat when like I just got to sit back as an audience member and get fired up and get me excited about customer experience. So and Glenn, I love, obviously, that we're friends and I love hanging out with you too. But Nate most recently inspired me, but Glenn, you inspire me on a daily basis. So both inspiring people.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, like when I met Nate, I think I met Nate in the speaker lounge, and we had a little conversation. Yep. I'm like,
that's right.
I'm like in my head, I'm like listening to Nate, and I'm like, he's just blowing my mind of all the stuff he's just saying. I'm like, oh, he's got to come on my podcast. Yes. And and I'm like, and I was trying to get two other people, but they had some medical issues, and I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna have Nate, and he's Nate and Ben on this podcast, because I'm like, they've been through this, I've been through this, and customer service, I mean, alone, just thinking about it, for me, customer service would be when I walk into a store, I'm expected to get greeted, right? And that's from my corporate retail days, because Ben Balvis know from my past experience, I used to work for the Sharper Image, and customer service was our biggest thing there. And no matter what, whoever came in the store, everyone had to get greeted, no matter what. We always had a greeter at the door. So your experience, and we're going to get into the IT world of customer service, or could we change it and say customer experience? Please. Or is it still a service? right? I just had a conversation yesterday. I was in a psychological safety class. Nice. And one of it was like, should we still call it service or experience? Right? So, I mean, that's the buzzword right now is experience. And some people are utilizing it correctly and some are not. And I bet you that kind of like want to like pull your hair at times, right? So tell me, either I'll go with Nate first and then Ben, what's customer service to you that's outside of IT?
Well, let me go back to one of the comments that Ben made around being a fire starter. And I think that's something that Karen Hurd actually put in her book, Winning Well. I love that term, fire starter. And I attempted to write a piece this week. It performed very poorly, but I'm still very happy with it. And I'm going to make you listen to something that I put in there because I think Ben, I mean, me and him have the same heartbeat here. And I put this whole commentary on how the world's full of chaos and how CX professionals get to bring this peace and harmony into these friction-filled situations. And so I put the tenacity, creativity, and goodness I saw in these CX leaders is enough to keep me going, to keep fighting for better experiences. I believe most CX leaders bring a special energy and mission-driven excitement into the workplace. It's needed more now than ever. And I mean, I just really believe that that's one of the attributes that we get to bring as customer service leaders, as CX leaders, is that flame of excitement of who we get to serve and why. And bringing that voice of customer, bringing that energy into every interaction that we can is an essential function that we perform. But to go to your actual question, Glenn, so I mean, if we think of what service looks like beyond IT, beyond the internal focus, I mean, it's interesting because that really is what we're trying to do. And I'm going to use the story brandism of the idea that we're not the hero of this story. The customer is the hero of the story. So that puts us in the role of guide. And what does the guide do? The guide serves. The guide is there to serve the hero of the story as they navigate their journey. And so the better that we can perform our role, our function as guide, the better that we can serve in that capacity, the better that journey, the better the experience is going to look like for the hero of our story. And that narrative can take so many different forms. It can absolutely be an internally focused journey of IT professionals that are trying to make it easier for people to do their jobs. That's such a critical function of the guide. Or it could be way outside the company, serving way out on the front lines in whatever field, whatever vertical that you serve in, but the mentality is still the same. I get to focus on this individual and their needs. I get to serve them and create an experience for them. So it almost doesn't matter to me if we're using the word service or experience. What matters to me is the mentality and our ability to be the guide.
And that's the challenge, right? Where for the way you spoke about it, so much passion and staying positive the whole way. Yes, you'll have your pitfalls once in a while, but those are fixable. Yeah. And that's us, right? That's IT.
And inevitable. Like you're going to make, like, pitfalls and mistakes are the path to innovation is like littered with mistakes. Like you can't get to innovation without taking wrong turns.
Yeah. Yeah. So Nate, were you going to say something? Sorry, I didn't want to.
I love the terminology you're using around motivation. And my favorite resource in this area is Neil Doshi and Lindsay McGregor. They wrote Prime to Perform. And they talk about TOMO, the total motivation factor. Yes. And they have a very scientific way of measuring the different ways that we are victims of our jobs. We are all a victim of our job at different levels, psychologically, some of us even physically to some degree, some of us economically, and some of us just as simple as inertia. We're sitting in a chair, we're doing a job because we've done it for years. And we've become a victim of that sad momentum that's not actually going anywhere. So breaking that down and eliminating that negative friction, eliminating that negative psychological environment and incubating in a circle of psychological trust. I love that you just took that course, Glenn. You could probably speak to it way more relevantly than me, but I mean, to use that Simon Sinek quote, we don't win by walking around stabbing things with swords. We win with the strength of our shields and our ability to get back to back and protect one another's back. That's that circle of trust that is established. Then we can start thinking about the positive motivators. Let's build community around one another. Let's look at the purpose-driven work that we get to do, the special ways that we get to serve people around us. But if I'm worried about a knife in the back, I'm not going to think about you or anybody else. I'm focused on me right now. So you have to get to that baseline of my ability to turn and now focus outward. So that's where it starts. Now that we're there, okay, let's think about purpose, potential, and play, which is curiosity and excitement about the work. Let's get that excitement back in it, that flame back in the work. But if you're still here, hoping you don't get a knife in the back, forget about all of it.
Yeah. And I think that's one of IT's Achilles heels. They're always worried about that knife behind their back.
Yeah.
And then customer service just all of a sudden just starts dwindling down, and the experience for that customer starts dwindling down, and then you start losing trust. It's a common thing at corporate retail. You get that one bad apple who puts a bad review. We didn't have reviews back then,
right?
So literally the time we were just getting over to VoIP. That's when VoIP became a thing. That's when we jumped on that bandwagon too. So that's how archaic I am when it comes to technology when I was in corporate retail. So when people would send in a bad survey, it, even before Yelp and anything, it would spread like a wildfire.
Wow.
Yeah. And we always had this thing, it always it makes 14 good Ds to make one back right again.
Yep.
And it applies anywhere if you're customer centric. It's just like IT. And IT doesn't realize that, or sometimes doesn't accept it, right? Where they're like, no, we just focus on, making the company good. But your customer is HR, your customer is marketing. You're not dealing with the people who are buying the product, but your customer is the company.
Indirectly, you absolutely are.
Yeah. And that's the challenge where IT needs to understand and accept. And wondering why even surprisingly here, we accept it. It's just, we're such a huge department. Some other IT departments don't accept it. And it's kind of weird. And, and that's where I think where silos occur. And breaking down that silo is like, look, we're a customer of you. Why are you treating us that way? Because we're totally opposite way, because we're so used to helping out, Nobel laureates and researchers and stuff like that. Right. And we treat them with kindness, but internally we tend not to treat each other with kindness. Yeah. And that's a challenge. It's like, look, it's customer service both ways. It's not a one-way street. And what are your thoughts on that? On making IT realize, for the people who are listening, I'm surprised there's a lot of listeners on my podcast where they,
of course there are.
All right. I was
awesome.
so surprised, right?
I think that, by the way, it's that kind of humility that probably makes sense why you have such a good customer experience for your team too. I think, like when you see like arrogant people in the service industry doesn't mix, right? I think that humility and servant leadership, sorry for the aside, but I think it was a great case in point. I'm like, that very humility, I think, is what makes you good. I think that's the differentiator.
Well, how do we bring that to other IT? So that's the challenge, right? Because there's a lot of protection. People put up walls, or some people were like, I know this system, and if you eliminate it, then you lose the data, right? Yep. And you're left with the legacy system. So how do we go over that obstacle?
I mean, I struggled with this early in my CX career, where I took on the mantle of a CX role, which took me years to earn inside of an organization that did not want to do customer experience. I fought for it for years, and I came into the role fighting, and I was fighting my peers. And I was trying to take customer experience into me instead of unlocking it into others.
Yeah.
And I was using voice of customer to basically tell everybody else how much they sucked. And every day was a battle. And I was telling this to a mentor of mine, Debbie Hummel, and she looked at me and she's like, why are you fighting your own people, you idiot? Why are you girding yourself for war to come into work with people that you should trust and that respect you and that want to be with you? It's like, no wonder people act defensive around you, and you have to fight so hard to make anything happen. because you're turning everybody off with your mentality. It's like, oh my gosh, you're right. Like, I couldn't see it. I couldn't see it because my entire career before that, I was the opposite. I was the guy that was giving and serving, and that was just the way that I was. Somewhere, and I didn't even feel it happen, but I shifted. I shifted my mentality. I poisoned my relationships with those around me. So I had to do a big 180 come about and just think about how can I help you? How can I bring CX to you in a way that's going to help solve your problem? And I'm not going to sit here and beat you over the head with it. I'm going to be alongside you in this trench, digging with you and just helping. I'm just going to help. And that changed everything.
I love the, first of all, I love you sharing that story. And I've heard the longer version of it and I love it. And I love you admitting that you didn't get it right because it was like completely motivated by the right things. Like the reason you were so passionate is you were advocating for your customers. Like literally, like you were a like holy warrior for your customers and doing the right thing. It wasn't for you, obviously, because it didn't really help your career at that job, it sounds like. But you know,
yeah, I did for a while.
yeah, but I mean, you really, I think like you did more just in that role, even when you were kind of arguing with your peers, than most people I've ever met, even in CX. So you killed it. But I think this is where we go like to the master's level course of like, a lot of people just need to like start by kind of like wanting to provide a great experience, right? And then like kind of like the graduate level is like, you know, okay, well, I need to not just want to, but actually execute, you know? And then I think the kind of like the doctoral level or the crazy postgraduate level is like, and do it without pissing people off. Because I mean, I, you know, ran huge teams, crazy employee engagement scores, like completely transformed Fortune 500 companies.
Wow.
And to this day, I know several people that effing hate my guts or my peers because I similarly, I was fighting so hard and I was like coming to war. And it's like, they were like, you got to choose your battles. I'm like, I choose all of them. And I didn't compromise. And looking back at the time, I thought I was, you know, this soldier, but they were on the same team too. Just because they didn't think the same way, they're still on the same team. And I usually have no regrets, but as I get older, I look back and I'm like, man, I'm humbled by the mistakes I made. I'm like, I hope next time I'm in this situation, I learn to play nice with others, which you're supposed to learn in third grade, but apparently I didn't.
We grew up in a different generation, right? So for me, what was it? Like a lot of the parents around me were, especially the fathers, were Vietnam vets.
Yeah.
So imagine raising their kids and that mentality of, you know, you're bully on a bully. That's really, you know, that's how it was in my school. So growing up, you're just like, well, I kind of wanted to go that route. And I didn't realize that when I was little, I was like, I didn't want to go that route. That wasn't my thing. It was cool to be in the cool group, to be, you know, that bully. But in reality, you're like, well, you end up fighting and then you're friends like 2 minutes later after the fight,
right?
You know, a physical fist fight, you know, that's usually the case. And nowadays, it's a different generation. Like there's none of that. I mean, the parenting has changed so much where a lot of kids these days are motivated they want change. They want something different. Like here, it's like, that one guy who's on your podcast, Rumsberg,
Jeff Rumberg?
Huh?
Rumberg? Jeff Rumberg? Yeah.
So my staff went to his talk, and they were so motivated to like totally shift left. And they're like, I mean, literally, they sent me his presentation. They're like, let's have a meeting. Let's talk about like, let's do a shift left. And such like, they were so like, they went to Maddie's talk. I believe they went to your talk and Nate's talk and some others. And they were so motivated.
That's awesome.
And they're like, what can we do to make IT client services better? And I'm like, we're better. Now you guys want to go to great.
Yeah, well, that's what you should do. First of all, like your team, I met them and I have to shout out to your team. who, if
Yeah.
memory served, all had the same name. What was it like?
Yeah, Eric's.
Eric's, all their Eric's.
Eric's, all the Eric's. Oh my gosh, we have so many Eric's in this
Amazing.
department.
But they were the sweetest guys, and they did have that inspiration. And if I can like commandeer for a second and do a throwback, as I zoom out, I wonder if what Nate was saying at the beginning about purpose, and also like I listened to Nate, I don't know if it was recent or old time ago, but you did some interview where you were talking about like this the importance of being mission driven with CX.
Yes.
And like, just as you were talking about purpose and play, and Glenn, as you're just talking about like your people coming up and really getting this inspiration, and how important it is to have that inspiration. Maybe the secret is, as I look back on like the most badass teams that I ran, we always had a clear mission statement that was not a bullshit one, but a real one. Like we didn't go to job. We came to work on like a pirate ship or a Viking ship to accomplish something.
Yes.
Together though. Like Nate or Glenn, like, do you guys think maybe that's the secret? Do you think that's the secret, is having that mission that unites the team, to that way there is an inspiration when you come to work every day?
I think so. From my experience from bringing the team their first time to a conference, because they always see me go to conferences and they always see me motivated. It's like, why is Glenn always motivated? Right. And then now they drank the Kool-Aid of HDI, and they're like, oh, I like this old motivation thing, right? Makes me want to move forward and try something different, try something outside the box, right? Because it seems like when you go to an HDI conference or any conference, it's like, it seems like people are doing something that outside the box, that we need to get out of traditional and try something different that really, really shakes our IT and shakes our customer service, where it makes it better. And that's what they're always looking for. Not only make it better for our customers, have the customer experience, but also make it better for us. So we're satisfied in both ways. So we're thinking of now of having, like right now, like the team you saw that went with me to the HDI conference. Yeah. Now they're like, well, we'll be the conference crew. I'm like, no, we got to switch it up once in a while because they love it so much. And they're like, I'm like, well, we need to start bringing in more people so they can get motivated. Yeah. And they're like, oh yeah, now they're like thinking, who can we bring in that's not motivated or unmotivated, and bring them to a HDI to listen to, like Nate, or if you speak again, Ben, I know I want to speak again, and have them get motivated again. Right. And they were like, oh, wow, we went through this. We did that. It's like when we were in Florida at the HDI in Florida, Ben, I had one of our managers go. We had one of our managers because she's a colleague of mine, and she got motivated by XLAs. Right. And she brought it up, and people were like, couldn't understand it. Like, I understood it. I took a class, and thank you, Ben, for doing that. But I think it's still new to people. When it's kind of not, but people are still trying to wrap their head around XLAs. It's like, how do we implement it? I'm like, well, if you go to HDI conference, there's some breakout courses where you can listen to it. So, and that big word X, right? Like, have you seen that airplane, that private jet, JSX? Their terminology, they're out here in the West Coast. Sorry, Nate, they haven't gone to the middle Midwest yet. And JSX is a company, and JSX stands for Just Simple Experience.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I love that.
Right. And he thought about, like, well, I got tired of standing in line at the airport. It wasn't a great experience. So I decided to buy a bunch of private jets and make everyone, make it close as possible as commercial airline prices, but you just have a better experience. Wow. And that's what he was focused on, was just the experience. And bringing in experience now makes me think, and I've been using this lately, is how can IT give the experience of how Disney gives you the experience when you walk into Disneyland, right? So when you walk into Disneyland, you're like so excited, so motivated to, like, I got to write this ride. I got to write this ride. I got to do this. I got to eat these foods in this area. Right. And the people are so friendly, because that's a foregone conclusion, because people know they're going to get friendly service. Right. how can IT get to that point where, oh, we know IT has friendly service, but oh man, I got to talk to that network team. I've got to talk to, oh, let me call service desk, right? How can we get to that level when they've been practicing for so many years and IT's been around for so many years? I'm surprised they haven't picked that up yet, right?
Yeah, I think so is the business, and everyone that relies on IT is also surprised they haven't picked that up yet. You think they would have picked that up by now, but I mean, what I try to tell people is that you'll see IT leaders and IT technicians, managers at all levels trying to say, how do we create a great experience? To your point, it's already been solved. If you go to the Ritz-Carlton in Taipei, in Nashville, and like, you don't have to invent how to create a great experience. You know, Disney uses like design thinking, and that's how they figure out what's going on, you know, and they have a mission. They have a very clear, them and the Ritz-Carlton have a very clear mission. Shout out to their leadership programs too. Both of those organizations will train your leaders. We've sent our IT leaders there and it's great. But you know, it's not hard. Like, they've already done the work and it's not proprietary.
No.
Like, if you read a book on design thinking and take a course, and you'll know what they know. Like, the thing is, like, how do you let go of what you know in IT or anything else to do that? Like, the reason that I became like quote unquote like IT experience guru is because I didn't know anything about IT, and so I didn't have to unlearn anything. But you know it's a lot harder if you grew up and you've been in IT for 20 years and all of a sudden someone's using different terminology, and especially if you're good and great at what you do and someone's like, oh, this is different now, like, it's a lot harder because you have to unlearn stuff, you know. Like, it was literally my ignorance of IT that made me good, you know, because I was the right place at the right time. But ignorance isn't a foolproof strategy. So like, yeah, how do you get people that are, you know, that have been in the game for a while to be Disney-like? You know, like, design thinking is one, and I would say have a clear mission, and Disney measures it too. Have a way to define it. Like, you can't improve what you can't measure. So if you don't have a valid way to measure experience, like, I mean, you're probably not gonna, you're only going to improve on accident if you do, you know, like, you're never going to know that you did. I don't know. What do you think, Nate?
Yeah, the Disney example is an interesting one to unpack. I mean, that one of their core tenets of their mission is to entertain.
Yeah.
Right.
So IT professionals, that's not one of our core tenets. But if we look at it, some of their other core tenets: improving lives, exceeding expectations, improvement of communities. Those are tenets that are very relevant to IT thinking in terms of, we want to improve your life working inside this organization. There's a great stat from G2 Crowd recently that half of people that are leaving their jobs are burned out because of bad digital experiences. The software they use sucks. And they're leaving jobs because their digital experience inside the company is so fragmented that they're over it. They're going to go to a more competent company. So you want to tell me that the IT experience isn't important to the overall culture and ability for the company to achieve its purposes? You're crazy. You're crazy if you don't know that. Digital experience is so critical, and IT usually owns that. But if we got to look at it this way. When you're walking in a Disney park, you're already excited. It didn't start, Glenn, when you walked in the park. You were already so excited because of Disney's reputation, because of the anticipation that you had getting in there. So Disney built that reputation, and they curated your perception long before you set foot in the park. So, I mean, that's a huge lesson right there for IT. The experience didn't start when we showed up at their workstation. The experience started with the reputation that we have in the business. And that goes back to the mentality that we have when we're serving people. Is it obvious that we're there as an IT club just to do the bare minimum and go back to the basement? If that's your mentality, if that's the way you come across to people, they're not going to be excited for you to come up to their workstation and to serve them in whatever way. So you get to build that reputation to make them excited to have that experience with you, to walk into the park. And another big Disneyism, I apologize for talking too long here, but like, I love that Disney took over Central Florida.
Yes.
Because it's bigger than the park, right? People were having a bad experience at Disney because of Central Florida, because they were sunburned, they were ruined with mosquitoes, there was terrible traffic, the hotel was terrible, cockroaches, blah, 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 blah. And Disney came in. They built their own hotels. They built the boardwalk. They built the incredible transportation system. They own the entire journey, the experience that somebody had in Central Florida, so that they could keep those people excited and energized about the parks. It didn't cannibalize away from the experience. So, I mean, that's another huge thing for the IT world. It's so much bigger than those little touch points that we do have directly with the customer. We're creating a set of tools. And the average enterprise has 464 custom applications inside of it. That's Central Florida. That's mosquitoes and swamps and alligators. That's going to kill you. You don't want to go into that ecosystem of tools because it's ridiculous. So we got to make that a lot better and make people excited to come into the digital experience that we create for them. That's when you can start to work on Disney World.
Yeah. Well, Disney, if you're listening to my podcast, if anyone from Disney,
you should be.
They should be. And if you could provide us some season passes, that'd be great. So anyway, that's that little plug for Disney. But going back to Ben talking about the Ritz-Carlton, I was reading an article before Apple started their retail business. Mm-hmm. They had all their executives and all the people who's going to start up the retail market all go to the Ritz-Carlton for their customer service training program.
Yep.
How amazing is that? Right. They looked around, they said they did all their research and which one could provide us the best customer service training. And they went to the Ritz-Carlton. I think they stayed in for like 2 weeks or something like that, or longer to go through their customer service training. And now if you go in an Apple store, it's a great experience.
Yeah.
Like it used to be better. Actually, like I know way too much about the Genius Bar and stuff. So it's actually their NPS has dropped a lot, but in the Steve Jobs days, yes, like it was game changing. The amount of CIOs that came to me and were like, oh, I've got this great idea, the Genius Bar, but at our work. Like everyone thought that was a great idea. And I'm like,
I jumped on that bandwagon. Yeah.
You should, because they did it right. And again, they didn't reinvent how to create a great experience. They went to Ritz-Carlton and said, hey, what is the makings of a great experience? And then they applied those principles in the same way, like Disney, you don't have to be, if you're in IT, you're like, oh, I'm not Disney, I'm not about community. We have different missions, but you need to have a mission. The point is, like, Disney has an epic mission, and IT, most teams I talk to don't have an epic mission, and it's certainly not one aligned with the company. And secondly, something I think that was really rad that I was thinking about, that when Nate was talking about Disney, they didn't just make an awesome park and say like, well, Florida sucks. Well, that's not us, and the amount of IT people I see, they'll read surveys and they're like, oh, that's not us, that's HR.
Wow.
Well, tough cookies, man. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, if you want a great experience, and again, just to lean on my own experience, like every team that I've led that has like totally just transformed like the employee experience of a company, I always said the same thing. You don't get there by doing your jobs great. Anyone can do their jobs great. Champions do everyone else's jobs great too. And so, like, if you're waiting for HR to be perfect at interacting with you in onboarding, you're going to be waiting a long time. If you're waiting for recruiting to not hand someone's name, especially at a global company, and have their AD password be created wrong, you're going to be waiting a long time. You have to do everyone else's job. But what's amazing, and this is the opportunity that no one else but IT has. IT both has like the admin, credentials and owns a lot of the tools, but also we interact with, Glenn, every single person and team in the company. We have our fingers on the pulse, especially your technicians, not the VPs, not the directors. The technicians have your fingers on the pulse of every office and how things are going. If we actually, take that information and say, okay, like, what's really going on down there and how do we fix it? And then we work, like, unlike me, who just like I said, pissed some peers off, but actually said, here's the voice of the customer. We see these things are broken. Let's help HR do this. Not HR, you suck. Not, hey, networking, building B, the internet sucks. Let's help them do it. And if you come to work saying, we're going to create a badass experience, regardless of whether or not it's our job, whether it means like cleaning up building B because they cut the sanitation budget, whatever it means. And when you lead by example like that, that's when you get that fire. And I think, not to keep harping on the mission, but if there's one thing that I want people to take away besides that I talk too much, it's that there is have a mission, not a bullshit mission statement, but decide, go back. And if you're in California, smoke a joint. If you're somewhere else, just meditate, do something.
Not in Tennessee, but yep.
Yeah. Do something to reflect and just think like, why are we here? What would be the most awesome way to spend the precious moments I have left on this earth, that I'm going to spend at work, and come back and say, guys, I have a mission. And I on another podcast, I'll tell you a couple of real examples of the missions that we used that were funny, but it just dawns on me. And I always forget this because we talk to so many IT leaders and we talk about, the little tips and tricks, but like, just know why you're there. Like if everyone is on a mission, then they're going to be happy. They're going to make great decisions. All their tiny micro decisions throughout the day are going to be guided by that. It's just, to me, I think if everyone went home and made that a priority for Q3, just the world would change.
I mean, there's almost a visual forming in my mind, and this might be rough because it's still very much forming in my mind.
Do it.
It's almost like there's a scale here, and especially in the IT world, when we become defensive, when we start to resent our peers because of their incompetence, right, because of the different ways that we are a victim of our job, it pushes that scale in a negative direction. When you can infuse the work with a mission-driven mentality of, I care about this so much that I'm going to care about this person more than their incompetence, more than the frustration level that I have. I'm going to let those positive intrinsic motivators outweigh these other aspects that are always going to be frustrating in a job, especially in an IT job. They're always going to be there. But if you can get somebody to care enough about these things that matter, they're not going to be consumed by these petty other things.
Yes.
Yeah. Ben, you were just talking about HR, and I just remember having experience back in not back in the days, back several years ago, where HR had a problem. And I think I kind of just rattled the cage a little bit, but in a positive way where, nice. And you talk about humility. I can't even say the word. I'll say humble. There you go. And then
you live the word, Glenn. You don't have to.
Anyway, and here's a perfect example. When HR had a problem with their onboarding and the IT portion of it was kind of like missing or having a bad experience, I'm like, hey, why don't you invite IT into these meetings now? And they're like, what do you mean? Like, well, the part experience, because everyone needs a computer and they need that experience of getting that account, getting it set up and getting it up and running. And they're like, oh, so you want to be in our meetings? So yeah, in the beginning and into the end, because we want to make sure we're not missing a blind spot or and make sure our blind spots are covered. And they were so surprised about, like, wow, IT is going to be in our meeting now. How awkward is that? It's not awkward. We're a team trying to work together, and we need our portion to help you become more successful. So it's a less pain point on your side. And they didn't realize, they don't understand that. And it was like, and they finally understood it once we, put our portion in. And for other departments to even marketing or even, someone like that would go, why does IT need to be involved in our stuff? We're involved in a lot of things. Yeah, they put up that wall. And then next thing you know, I'm coming in going, hey, let's work together. And they're like, what's this? Glenn just coming in, just puts himself in our meetings. And I'm like, you know what? I do that in coaching too. If there's a coaching clinic and I know someone's not going to talk something right, I'm going to invite myself to that clinic. Or if there's a tournament, I know my team would do well, but we get beat up and I want my team to get beat up, I'm going to invite my team to that tournament. And they're like, but you didn't get an invite. No, we're coming in. You just got to slot us in. That's kind of my forceful way once in a while. And lo and behold, yeah, we didn't win the tournament or we ended up winning a tournament. It was the fact that my team was getting experience. It was the fact that when people were saying one thing in a coaching clinic, I'm like, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that experience as you as a coach
Yeah.
How do you feel about that? And then I'll go to the audience who are coaches out there. How do you feel about that now? It's like, and they're like, wow, I never thought about my feelings, and you're asking about my feelings. And I'm like, yeah, because you're a coach and everyone's human and y'all have feelings. And that's what I try to put here at UC Berkeley is like, let's look at that. Let's break that down. Let's think about that. And they're like, wow. And it's like, do we really have time? I'm like, oh, I have all the time in the world. I will make time.
And it's all human stuff, right?
Yeah.
It's not like corporate strategy. It's literally like being a good human. Like if you like, I used to love evolutionary psychology just because it helps, someone with anxiety, it helps me understand that, yes, real fear used to exist with like a, triceratops or whatever. I'm not really familiar with their dinosaurs or whatever, but
it's a dinosaur.
Yeah. But now, like, you get this physical fear when like you have to go, have a weird conversation, right? So like, I'm always fascinated by how it starts, and that helps explain human behavior. Like humans, and I think customer experience comes when humans play well together, like you're talking about. And I always like to zoom out, but I just zoomed out in my head way back to like humanity, like since long before corporations, before like the Industrial Revolution, before, the internet, before the wheel, there were humans, and they had these things called tribes. And that's how we succeeded. And we got here because tribes did what? It was people working together.
Yep.
Yeah.
And really that's, and like, yes, there were competing tribes. So you would have your wars because humans have to do that, I guess. But like, I wonder if we just thought of companies as a tribe, like we're on the same team,
There's a challenge, right? Because in Laos, we're Laos, that country where being influenced is by your tribe, and your character is within your tribe. So building your character is from outside in. America is different. It goes inside out, right? You're your own tribe. And interesting how I was reading about that, studying about, I still haven't finished my study on that, but interesting how influentials from making my character comes from my tribe, from outside in. That makes me, right? Versus, inside out.
You all are, I'm about to burst over here. So yeah, the tribal leadership is incredible. I mean, it's an incredible book. And if you haven't looked at it, I mean, it's such a brilliant way to think about this stuff. I mean, you're so right, Ben. I mean, there's a lot of psychology here. We're trying to reduce cortisol, that fear motivator. We're trying to bring in the community chemicals of oxytocin and serotonin. And it's a totally different way of treating people and thinking about why we interface with each other. And to put it in the context of a tribe is brilliant. So if we look at the 5 stages of tribal leadership, the stage
that you have this, by the way, this is really cool.
Stage 1 is all life sucks. I just have to not die today. That's then it becomes my life sucks. But then the third tribe, and this is where most organizations get to, I'm great and you're not. So like our tribe's awesome, our team's cool, I'm great, I can do these things. That's kind of the end of it. And that's where a lot of us fizzle out. A stable tribe, a good functional tribe, is we together are great. We can do so much more if I can actually celebrate truly and authentically the victories of another member of my team and not in the lens of me and what that does to me. And are they taking something away from me? That is a great tribe. And then the final stage is truly that idea of life is great. We all together, when we function in this habitat together very well, and we're working to serve one another authentically and truly, that's a level 5 tribe. Most of us will never see it.
And I think we can though.
We should.
I think the past is the best predictor for the future. So I agree with you, like philosophically that most of us will never see it, but doesn't it just kill you? And I know, I know that you could walk into just about any organization with, at least if you had some executive like sponsorship and clean that stuff up in like a matter of months. Like it can be done, we're in our own way. And if I can pile onto this tribe analogy for a second, like I think the tribe mentality, we get that. The problem is, who is your tribe? And I think, sorry to harp on IT, because we're so much like in the weeds with IT, but like, is your tribe IT, or is your tribe the company you work for? And that makes a huge difference, because if your tribe is IT, then yeah, FHR, but if your tribe is the company, then you work together. Like again, like Glenn said, we don't I won't mention any specific companies, but we had a big company that just did, it was a long, multi-year transformation, and I'm really proud of it. But the steps were really funny to me as a leader, when you think you've got it right and you get it wrong. Like, so first of all, like, it was IT. So like, he had like help desk, remote, level 1, level 2. And so we basically wiped all those titles. We also, by the way, for you IT people, we wiped incidents and I don't even remember what the other one is, and wiped all that BS, but we wiped those titles and we just said, like, you are global service desk, level 1, 2, 3. And we had like a career ladder, but it wasn't like everyone was on the same team. And we're like, we unified the team. And then what happened? They started dividing up geographically. And then it became like the US versus like East versus West, and then we're like, we unified the US. And then it's like, oh, EMEA and APAC versus US. Like, it was hilarious. And we were on the wrong tribe. But Nate, like, and since you do have to bounce, Glenn, sorry, can I mute and just hear like whatever few minutes we have left from Nate? Because like, yes. I could have been on a tangent, but I just personally, I need to hear what you have to say, Nate. I'm gonna mute.
Go for it, and then we'll end it. I'll close it out from here. So go for it.
Yeah, I mean, there's several things firing in my head, and the first one that popped in is Matt Dixon's brilliant article on reinventing customer service. It's required reading for IT service professionals, because what he did is he took this case study. It was from T-Mobile. And they had this massive, giant call center / service center / IT center, and it wasn't functioning well.
Right.
And they actually broke them up into tribes of like 50 people. And there's a magic number between 50 and 120-ish people to where people can get to know one another. I know the names of your kids. I know if you have a dog. And that's almost enough. Like right there, like I know you as a person to some degree. You are not just a corporate entity. You're a human being. You can only do that up to about a maximum of 150 people. As soon as you excel beyond that, everybody just becomes a hurdle, a barrier, a friction point to you. They're not a person anymore. So there is a magic element here to organizing in tribes, but not by a specific department necessarily. Because inside of these tribes and reinventing customer service, you had all these different critical functions that supported one another in these ecosystems. And I think it was Bob Thompson that did a similar thing. So they had this manufacturing environment, and it scaled up and it got so big that people didn't know each other anymore. So what did they do? They created more smaller manufacturing environments and scaled up that way, but maintaining the sanctity of the tribe. So, I mean, there's something magic and important here. And Ben, you're asking a brilliant question on who is the tribe. It is the organization, but we can have a smaller functional ecosystem inside of it, and having those autonomous, somewhat independent tribes, but that are aligned culturally, that are aligned to a unified and very distinctive mission. We can do that. And Patrick Lencioni does talk about another powerful tribe. It is the power of one, and the one is the tribe of the leadership team together.
Yes.
And when one of the first things that I look for coming into a new team, if I'm trying to understand team dynamics, is, are they bad mouthing other leaders in other departments? Because that's the first sign of immaturity. And I see it all the time in different teams that I served in the past, where it's like, yeah, you think that you're doing something to insulate and protect your people and being like a mother cub to your team. You're not. No, because what they see is, wow, as soon as I walk out the door, what are they going to say about me? And what if I were to switch roles into this other area? Does this person not care about me anymore? Are they not here for my career or here for me as a human being? Are they not here for the company? Are they just here because they want to have a great reputation as a leader? They just want their team to be great, and they care about that more than the greatness of the company and the mission? So, I mean, psychologically, that does not help to be that mother cub over your team. But when you admonish, when you edify the team of one, the leadership group together, and then bring that dynamic into your teams, It's amazing what that does to the circle of trust.
I don't want to talk about anything else for the rest of the week. I hope we can continue this conversation at some point. This is.
I think there's going to be a part 2 because there's a few things that rang a bell in my head of like one of my pet peeves. I did one earlier podcast about pet peeves, and this pet peeve is like, why does IT think they know customer service? And there's, they're trying to bring like customer service questions and stuff like that. And I'm like, you are the wrong people to try to figure out what questions to use or figure out for what questions to ask in our surveys. So there will be a part 2 to this. There's a lot. So
I love it.
Thank you so much for both of you attending. I really appreciate it. And for everyone listening, thank you for listening also. Nate, I know it's a hard stop, but can you do one quick plug about your company in 30 seconds?
Yeah, Arise is awesome. I mean, if you're looking for a great network of outsourced talent to be able to do burst capacity in a contact center or CX consulting, which is more my division, both of those things they're very good at. And we just launched an Arise gaming brand that is amazing. So for all the gaming clients out there that you're looking at your player experience, definitely hit me up.
I think my kids will want that
experience.
Yes. Yeah. Dude, thank you both.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
I just
Ben.
want to say, if you're looking for talent, anything that's even adjacent to Nate is going to give you a great customer experience. If you care about that, I just want to +1 that. Not because he's the real deal.
And ditto with Ben. Yes, let's go.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys. Really appreciate it. And thanks, take care, everyone listening. Be kind and be human. All right.
Yes.
Take care. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Wow, what an amazing conversation with Nate and Ben. Really exciting to have them on. The passion about customer service, how that conversation and how their experience and stories. Oh my gosh, so amazing. All right, so as you heard, there will be a part 2 to customer service because we have a lot to unfold, which is exciting. All right, everyone, I have one special announcement to make, and that is I created a YouTube channel, and the YouTube channel is called Bring Your Brain to the number 2 to work. So bring your brain to work. All right. So the first video of this YouTube channel for managing with common sense and bring your brain to work. Well, that's our slogan, is bring your brain to work, is this video right here. So I'm excited for having this video on our first video with Nate and Ben on our YouTube channel. Really excited. Check it out. I'll put the link below. Actually, I'll put the link in the description. And remember, folks, I want to appreciate you for listening to my podcast. I just do this to bring the word out of conversations that I've been having, and I want to share it with everyone around the world. All right. So really appreciate for everyone listening. If you could spread the word about my podcast and our new YouTube video, that'd be great. Don't forget to, if you like it, give it a thumbs up, and especially for the video and the podcast. And you want to subscribe, hit the subscribe button for both. Ooh, how exciting. And there is a notification bell. So you get notified for the new podcast. I do have a great lineup for my podcast, and I'm excited for it. So watch out for them. There's this one entrepreneur. She's great. I can't name drop right now because we still need to schedule that time, but I'm excited for it. Well, that's it. That's all I have. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching, and have a great day. And don't forget to be human and be kind. Take care, everybody. Bye.